course. This gives you an idea of the cultural fields that we cover. As I said, the performing arts are probably the most important ones in terms of applications, clearly from theater, music, very important, but also really everything from architecture to circus, craft work, which is becoming a little bit more important, photography, publishing. We cover really all the sectors. Again, we're quite important of this, and all these things will become even more important in the next program. Let me give you an idea of what has been happening in the last few years, actually, because the program didn't come from, not only from the current Creative Europe program, but also from all the cultural policy activities and developments that we have been thinking about and working on in the last few years. The European Agenda for Culture, of course, but not just it, also the work that we have been doing with the Member States, with the Council Work for Culture, and for the European Year of Cultural Heritage in 2018 in particular. 2018 was a key year for us, the European Agenda for Culture, the European Year of Cultural Heritage, and also the new Council Work Plan for Culture. So it was very, very dense as a year, but we also laid the ground for the new program as well. Just very, very few words about the European Agenda for Culture. This is because for the first time, as a matter of fact, the program on culture has been fully aligned with the policy. Before that, there was always a decalage between the policy, the cultural policy, and the activities of the program. Now, they're absolutely, fully, completely aligned. And we're also aligned if we look at the activities that the Council, so of the Member States. We look at sustainability for cultural heritage, cohesion, which is in particular very important for us, obviously, but the whole ecosystems of culture, starting with the working conditions, for instance, of people who work in culture, copyright, and so on. Equal opportunities, more and more important, and international cultural relations, on which we are also developing a new aspect of work, definitely. So let me put one slide about the Creative Europe 21-27. I'm sure that when you started organizing this conference, and when I was invited, I think for the first time it was in February or in March, actually, we were all expecting to have already a program fully designed and that I could explain to you with all the details. Unfortunately, that's not the situation because, as you know, the negotiation is still very much ongoing. I think that the tentative date for the trialogue, so the meeting between the Commission, but in particular the Council and the Parliament, will be mid-December. And also the big agreement on the big MFF, on the whole 7-year budget of the European Union, still is blocked, so we don't have a conclusion clearly about what will happen soon. In practice, I cannot tell you what we will be doing in January. I don't know if starting from January 1st, we will have a budget, not even a program. But we are receiving some good news from the Parliament and the Council, which is now we are discussing about a 50% increase of our budget in general for culture and for Creative Europe in particular. The calculation is from the current program. It's about a third from the previous figures that have been going around with the Council. So it's quite a lot of money. Let me tell you what does it mean in practice. It means that if we look at the as I said, at the core of the program, which will remain the cooperation projects, the networks, the platforms, and translation for what means for culture. It means that we can reach, hopefully, I mean, our calculation is that we might reach more than 6,000 organizations involved in cooperation projects in the next 7 years. Platforms, right now we have 15. there could be more. There definitely could be more. 28 now, it's our calculation, but if we have more money, there could be even more, about 40. Same thing for networks. There can be more money for the networks, but also there can also be more new networks that can be created and supported by us. Translation. Our calculation was about, for the next program, 3,000 books to be translated, and now we are talking about 4,000, maybe 4,300. So it's a big change. It's really a big change. We hope also to receive enough human resources, as a matter of fact, so that I will be able to really handle all these changes. Other things that we will be working on, of course, well, the international aspects. You know that, probably you know that we have been running a successful preparatory action with UNIC, with the National Cultural Institutes, and we would like to continue with them. This is about activities not as the network in Europe, but about the activities of our members abroad, which is quite an important development. And also when it comes to networks and for platforms, for instance, we are also discussing with them about what could be the international dimension, because of course culture doesn't have real fixed borders, no? So in many networks you already have members that belong to third countries, as we call them, and also for platforms, artists need to grow up, to develop, to bloom. They need to go abroad, and why not? They can also go outside the borders of the EU, and we can also provide some support for that as well. Other activities that we're talking about, what will be new? Well, one is the mobility, of course. Mobility is another successful pilot which is being running by the DG, by the Commission. Of course, mobility right now is a bit complicated these days. I will say a few words at the end about the impact of the crisis. Of course, if we don't launch new activities for mobilities in 2021, also given the situation of the crisis and the fact that the budget is still unclear, we still want to do it in the next years of the program as well. And of course, the pilot, the existing pilot, will continue next year, so we will be covered. The same thing also for the sectoral actions like music, by cultural heritage, and architecture also, for instance, and publishing. I will say a few words right now, but now I wanted to focus on some as I said, some priorities, some cross-sectoral priorities of the Commission in general. For instance, the European Green Deal, a European Fit for Digital Age, so digitization, and gender, the gender issues, which are particularly obviously quite important also for culture as well. And I wanted also to show you a little bit what we have been doing this year, in 2020. Because we have been preparing the ground for the next program, also with the last selection that we have done for cooperation projects. For instance, when it comes to the European Green Deal, there's a whole cluster of new projects, completely new. They're about to start now, and they all work about important things like climate change and sustainability, from healthcare to adaptive reuse, biodiversity, the difference between cities and the rural landscapes. And you can see it's all these things are really at the cutting edge of innovation, which is quite important for us, for our program. No? The fact that we are also, if I may say so, we are leading the change. We are supporting innovation, people that are really want to innovate the things that are being done for in culture. Digitization, which is huge for us, no? Because of these days, because for everything, but also because it really provides fantastic opportunities for culture. And you go, really, it's amazing, so many things that are being done, cutting edge, really, like blockchain, like artificial intelligence, like digital services, the fact that we can really build an important ecosystem for culture with the digital services. Gender as well, of course, quite important. And it's not just, I like this many projects that have a reflective aspect or even an activist aspect. It is gender, but it's not just, counting if we have more men or more women in a project. It's really about making people think. We are trying to bring about, to change, to effect a change in culture. And this is more or less what we will be doing next year. Because the new budget, very, very unlikely, will not be available next year because of the big discussion that is ongoing on for the MFF, but also because the way the extra money, this 600 million that will arrive, they will be part of the new own resources of the European Union. So they will come from competition fees, for instance. So for the moment, we cannot say that the new money will be available in January. That's for sure impossible. We don't have yet the profile of the new budget and so on. So the first year will be very similar in our plans for what we have been doing in 2020, only with a little bit more money already. So that will be quite important. It means cooperation projects, networks, platforms, and lit translations, of course. This is what we will be doing, and then the DG will also continue with new activities. But there will not be a big bang in 2021. 2022 might be better, but in 2021 it's more about evolution rather than revolution, definitely. But anyway, I can already tell you that we are considering in this continuation that will be about the current program, there will be some fine-tuning. So for instance, for cooperation projects, we would like to focus more on the creation of content and on innovation. For innovation, we have a broad interpretation, of course. So it's not just digital innovation, it's also about social innovation. It's about new practices or new business models, and gender equality is part of it, definitely. When it comes to the sectoral approach, as I said, there are already activities that will continue about Music Moves Europe, for instance, in 2021, but we will fine-tune our contribution with cooperation projects for adding a clearer focus on this more mature, let's say, sectors. Well, we will ask them, for instance, to focus on professionalization, which is the biggest demand, I think, for the sector, and which is something that can be easily, I think, fit within cooperation projects. The fact that we have more money will give us, if everything goes well, the possibility also to earmark some money for this project as much. When it comes to platforms and networks, as I said, we're very satisfied for both schemes. So they will basically continue, but they will be in our plans, of course, always a little bit more money and the possibility of having also more platforms and more networks as well. 2 words about the crisis, of course, because we cannot ignore the situation we are right now, of course. The crisis is what we have. We took some remedial measures immediately, as most of you probably know. So we provided as much flexibility as we could from central services, which means changing the deadlines, moving the work programs for each project, giving them the possibility of moving, for instance, activities online, but also changing all the dates and providing some flexibility for the budgets in the budget item, of course. We receive hundreds, obviously, of amendments to the contracts, And I think we are treating them to some satisfaction, I hope. In fact, as far as I know, at least in my calculation, over 700 projects that we run in my unit, only one project fell, only one project closed down because of the crisis. All the others continue with enormous difficulties, of course, but also maybe also thanks to our support. So we are happy about that. What will happen in the future? Well, first of all, we hope that then the crisis will slowly, maybe, but will find its solution. And I'm sure that there will be an explosion of demand of activities, or a huge demand for culture, given how we have been isolated all this time. And it's very, very important, and it's comforting that also the minister and at the political level, everybody agrees that culture is part of the solution to what there is, because culture is a way of overcoming isolation, no? And we should avoid that lockdown brings to a breakdown of society. So that's why, in particular, the focus that we want to put on social coherence is particularly important. What we are trying to do, no? We also should keep in mind, maybe this is a more political point, but this crisis is a big change, but on the other hand, it's also the amplifier, if I say so, of some trends that were already there. Digitization, so extremely important, of course, an opportunity, but also other things, no? Like the closing down of borders, the globalization, the fact that people live in echo chambers, also because of the online world. All these things, I think that with culture we can help overcome these obstacles, these difficulties. So the kind of projects that I've described very, very discreetly, I think, also because I cannot tell you much more because the negotiation is ongoing. But the kind of things that we want to support is we want to support that people make think, basically. This is what culture does. With these projects, we would like to support people to think, to have a more reflective approach to the world that we have now, to the changes that we are facing, from the Green Deal to digitization, which is indeed a big challenge as well. So that's why you also have my last screen. The last screen is because of the Eurobarometers that we do quite regularly, and we also ask what are the issues? How can we create a feeling of community among citizens? And I think it's quite comforting that it's always culture that tops this list. It's more than the economy, it's even more than values or the geography, the fact that we are neighbors. But it's really culture. It's only with culture that we can create this sense of community. Now, since this sense of community has been a little bit hindered by the situation that we're facing now, I think it's quite important. It was a really huge signal that we received from the Council and the Parliament that they want to give us more resources for continuing with this project. And of course, let's all fingers crossed. Let's hope that there will be an agreement, if not now, in December, about the MFF and about the program, and we can start all over again with our new things. Thank you very much. This is the end of my a bit confusing presentation, I'm afraid, but that was the best I could do with this situation. Thank you, Lea.
Yeah, thank you, Walter. No, it was perfectly fine. We started a little later, but I think everyone is happy that we managed to bring you on the platform. So thank you very much for your presentation. Also for me, I know already a little about Creative Europe, but of course also some of what you mentioned also about the future program was new to me. But I don't want to speak too much about me, but there are still some questions here, and we decided to give us some more time So we planned to end 10 minutes later. So for everyone who is still on board, please share your questions. And I received already 2 or 3 questions via the chat. So Walter, I will just read the questions, and then you have the chance to answer. So the first question came on the Q&A section, and it says, at the European Theatre Forum last week, it was said that Creative Europe will be greener in the future. And the person asked if this implies that this will be linked to the distribution of funds.
Distribution of funds?
So what he or she was saying is that, as it was said that Creative Europe will be greener, does it mean that there will be any rule or regulation in how funds are distributed, which is linked to like to climate change and sustainability, etc.?
Well, as I said, when it comes to rules, we really need to see the end of the negotiation. But when it comes for culture, at least, my view is that our contribution to the Green Deal can be very important, but it's more in terms of mobilizing the citizenship and the population rather than forcing people to take a train rather than a plane, let's say, if that I can say. Yes.
Okay, and I guess it is also something which will be then also be decided when the work programs are discussed.
Yeah, I mean, whenever it will happen, there will be a shadow committee, but after the trialogue, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So next question comes from Thierry Leonardi, and he asks if you could tell us a few words about the new Bauhaus project.
Yes and no, in the sense that, of course, this is an exciting project that was being launched by the president. And I was delighted, when von der Leyen said that the whole Green Deal, the project of sustainability, is not environmental only, it's not only economic, it's a sort of cultural project. It's quite important. Now we are still in the drawing board, and in particular would be the Joint Research Center of the Commission, and they are developing their plans about how to do it. We are not, if I can be brutal, we're not taking money out of Creative Europe for this, but I believe we can provide our support through the mobilization of our projects and of citizens. So we can have a particular role, I think, not so much for building, frankly, a new Bauhaus, which is not our job, but in our job, can we have some accompanying projects around? So we can provide some critical mass, but of course, I mean, the whole thing, the Bauhaus, cannot be done by Creative Europe.
But so that's something also people already approach us with a question if there will be any calls or funding from this Bauhaus project also open to the culture and creative sectors.
The answer is yes, but I don't have the details. I think they don't exist yet. I don't think the details are there. In any case, I'm 100% sure that the president wants to be the person who will make the announcement. So I will not say anything. But yes, there will be calls.
Okay, so Thierry, we should definitely follow the press conferences by Ursula von der Leyen also for that question.
I will be killed if I say anything before.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right, then we have the next question, and it's about the situation and the relation to the UK. Valerie Scheinflug, she's asking if there is a procedure or a plan for cooperation projects of EU-based institutions with UK-based institutions for the time after Brexit.
Well, I'm afraid that, in the